The alley behind the corner store on Maple and 14th smelled of wet cardboard and fryer grease, the kind of stink that clung to your coat long after you'd left. Sarah Thompson tugged her scarf higher, the wool scratching her chin like a reminder, keep moving. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday in late October, and the wind off the lake had teeth. She was 28, 5'2" in boots, and carrying 2 plastic bags, one with milk and eggs for tomorrow's pancakes, the other with a clearance rack sweater she'd bought because the color reminded her of her mother's eyes. She told herself the shortcut was fine, she'd taken it 100 times. The streetlights buzzed overhead like tired insects, and every step echoed too loud. She heard them before she saw them, 3 voices, low and laughing, the way boys do when they think the world is a game they've already won. They stepped out from the mouth of the alley, blocking the rectangle of light that led to the main road. Hoodies, sagging jeans, the glint of a chain necklace under a sodium lamp. The tallest one, Sarah would later remember the snake tattoo curling from his wrist to his knuckles, tilted his head. Lost, sweetheart, his voice was syrup over gravel. Sarah's pulse hammered in her ears. She took one step back, her heel hit a puddle and splashed. The bags swung heavy against her thigh. She thought of the self-defense class she'd taken once, the instructor's calm baritone, use your voice first. But her throat closed like a fist. The second guy, shorter, with a scar slicing through his eyebrow, reached out and flicked the edge of her scarf. Nice color. My grandma knits. They laughed again, and the sound scraped her skin. Sarah's mind raced through options, scream, run, drop the groceries and bolt, but her legs felt borrowed, someone else's clumsy limbs. The third one, quiet until now, cracked his knuckles one by one, the pops deliberate as gunshots. That was when the growl came. It rolled out of the darkness behind her, low and guttural, the kind of sound that bypassed the brain and spoke straight to the spine. The 3 guys froze. Sarah's breath fogged in front of her. She turned, slowly, because sudden moves felt dangerous, and saw him. He stood at the alley's far end, half swallowed by shadow. A man, maybe 60, maybe 70, impossible to tell under the layers. A threadbare army jacket hung from narrow shoulders, the sleeves were too short, exposing wrists roped with old scars. His beard was a storm cloud, gray shot through with white, and his eyes, pale blue, almost colorless, caught the light like chipped ice. But it was the dog that made her heart stutter. The animal was massive, a shepherd mix the color of midnight, ribs visible beneath matted fur. One ear flopped, the other stood ragged, torn in some long-ago fight. A length of frayed rope served as a leash, knotted around the man's fist. The dog's lips peeled back, revealing yellowed fangs, but its eyes stayed locked on the 3 boys, unblinking. The tattooed leader recovered first. Mind your business, Pops. The old man didn't speak. He simply took one step forward, boots scuffing broken glass. The dog matched him, muscles coiling under the skin. A second growl vibrated through the concrete, deeper this time, promising violence without hurry. Scar Eye swallowed. We were just leaving, the old man said. His voice was soft, almost kind, the kind of soft that made you lean in to hear, and regret it. Now, Sarah felt the air shift, like a storm front sliding in. The boys exchanged glances, bravado leaking out through their sneakers. Tattoo guy tried one last smirk, but it wobbled. They backed away, hands raised in mock surrender, then turned and jogged into the orange glow of the street. Their footsteps faded, fast, silence rushed in to fill the space. Sarah's knees buckled. She caught herself against the brick wall. The plastic bags slipped from her fingers, eggs cracking wetly inside. The old man and the dog hadn't moved. Are you hurt? He asked. She shook her head, not trusting her voice. Up close, she saw the patches on his jacket, faded unit insignias, a name tape that read Kowalski. His hands trembled slightly as he wound the rope tighter around his fist. The dog sat, tongue lolling, but its ears stayed pricked toward the alley's mouth. Sarah found her words. Thank you. Kowalski dipped his chin. World's full of wolves, miss. Some wear hoodies. He turned to go. The dog rose with him, nails clicking. Something in Sarah, maybe the cracked eggs, maybe the tremor in his hands, made her call out. Wait, please, let me buy you coffee. Or something. It's the least. He paused. For a moment she thought he'd refuse. Then he shrugged, a motion so small it might have been the wind. Dog's hungry. There was a 24-hour diner 2 blocks down, its neon open sign flickering like a heartbeat. Sarah led the way, hyper-aware of the man and dog trailing behind. Inside, the waitress, a woman with a name tag reading Dolores in a voice like bourbon, raised an eyebrow at the dog but said nothing when Kowalski slid into the corner booth. The shepherd curled beneath the table, head on its paws, eyes never leaving the door. Sarah ordered coffee, pancakes, a side of bacon for the dog. Kowalski stared at the menu like it was written in another language. When the food came, he pushed the pancakes toward Sarah. "Eat," he said. "You're shaking." She hadn't noticed. The first bite tasted like sawdust, the second like forgiveness. Between mouthfuls, she studied him. His fingernails were cracked, but clean. A thin scar ran from his left ear to the corner of his mouth, pale against weathered skin. "You live around here?" she asked. He tore a strip of bacon, fed it to the dog under the table. "Here and there." "That's not an answer." A ghost of a smile. "Best I got." Dolores refilled their cups without being asked. Outside, snow had started to fall, fat flakes drifting past the window like slow-motion ash. Sarah wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "I'm Sarah," she said. "I teach 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary. Those kids, they'd love your dog." The shepherd thumped its tail once. "Name's Shadow," Kowalski said. "Rescued each other, I suppose." Sarah waited. People who said little usually had oceans underneath. Kowalski sipped his coffee black. "Was in Fallujah, 04. Came home missing pieces, some you can see, some you can't. VA's a maze. Streets are simpler." He scratched Shadow's ears. "Found him in a drainage ditch outside Tulsa. Half-starved, leg caught in wire. Cut him loose, he followed me ever since." Sarah's throat tightened. She thought of her own tidy apartment, the stack of ungraded spelling tests, the way she sometimes cried in the shower because the loneliness was louder than the water. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be. Got a roof when it rains, cardboard's waterproof if you layer it right. Got Shadow. Got nights like tonight, when I remember I'm still useful." His pale eyes met hers. "That's more than some get." The diner's clock ticked past midnight. Sarah paid the bill, left a 20 under the plate for Dolores. Outside, the snow had painted the sidewalk white. Kowalski stood, Shadow rising with him. "Where will you go?" Sarah asked. "Bridge under I-65's dry enough." He said it like it was the Ritz. She hesitated. The words felt clumsy in her mouth, but she pushed them out anyway. "I have a couch. It's lumpy, but it's warm. And Shadow can have the rug by the radiator." Kowalski studied her for a long moment. Snowflakes caught in his beard. "You don't know me, miss. I know you scared off 3 guys who wanted to hurt me. I know your dog's ribs show, and you gave him your bacon. That's enough for tonight." He looked down at Shadow. The dog's tail wagged, slow and hopeful. Kowalski sighed, a sound like wind through empty buildings. "One night," he said. Sarah's apartment was on the 3rd floor of a brick walk-up that smelled of curry and laundry detergent. She unlocked the door with fingers that still trembled. Inside, the radiator clanked like an old friend. She found an extra blanket, a bowl for water. Kowalski stood in the doorway as if crossing the threshold might break something. "Bathrooms down the hall," she said. "Towels are clean." He nodded, then did something that cracked her heart clean open. He knelt, cupped Shadow's face in both hands, and whispered, "We're guests, boy. Mind your manners." Shadow licked his chin once, then padded to the rug and circled 3 times before lying down with a sigh. Sarah made tea, chamomile, because it was all she had. They sat at the small kitchen table, steam curling between them. Kowalski's hands wrapped around the mug like it was the first warm thing he'd held in years. "Tell me about your kids," he said. So she did. About Jamal who drew superheroes with brown skin, about Mia who stuttered but sang like an angel, about the way the classroom smelled of crayons and hope on good days. Kowalski listened the way desert listens to rain, quiet, absorbent, reverent. When the tea was gone, he stood. "Couch'll do fine." Sarah fetched pillows, a quilt her grandmother had sewn. Kowalski took them with a murmured thanks, then paused. "Miss Sarah, just Sarah. Sarah, you ever think the world's gone mean?" "Every day," she said. He nodded. "Then you keep teaching those kids different. One pancake breakfast at a time." He lay on the couch fully dressed, boots off, Shadow curled against his legs like a living hot water bottle. Sarah turned off the light, but sleep wouldn't come. She lay in the dark listening to the soft whistle of Kowalski's breathing, the occasional thump of Shadow's tail in a dream. At 3:17 a.m., she heard him cry out, just once, a broken sound that wasn't a word. She padded to the living room. Moonlight through the blinds striped the floor silver. Kowalski sat upright, hands clenched in his lap, sweat shining on his forehead. "Hey," she whispered, "you're safe." He focused on her slowly, like surfacing from deep water. "Sorry, old ghosts." Sarah sat on the coffee table, close enough to touch but didn't want to talk. He shook his head. Then, surprising them both, he reached out and patted her knee, awkward, paternal. "Go back to bed, kid." She did, but left her door open. Morning came gray and quiet. Sarah woke to the smell of coffee, real coffee, not the instant she usually drank. Kowalski stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with the concentration of a bomb tech. Shadow sat at his feet, hopeful. "Figured I owed you breakfast," he said. They ate in silence at first, then not. Kowalski asked about her lesson plans. Sarah asked about Shadow's favorite toys, a deflated soccer ball, apparently. When the plates were clean, Kowalski washed them without being asked. Sarah watched the way his scarred hands moved, careful, deliberate, the way her father used to polish his dress shoes before church. At the door, he paused with his hand on the knob. Snow had stopped. The city glistened like it had been forgiven. "I'll be all right," he said, reading her face. "I know." She hesitated. "But if you're ever not, the couch is lumpy, but it's yours." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he did something that would stay with her the rest of her life. He saluted, not the crisp military kind, but a slow, two-fingered touch to his brow, the gesture of a man who'd once believed in something bigger than himself. Shadow woofed once, soft. Kowalski stepped into the hallway. The door closed with a gentle click. Sarah didn't see him again for 3 weeks. She looked. Every evening walk, every trip to the corner store. She left a paper bag on the bench by the bus stop, a thermos of soup, a pair of wool socks, a note that said for the ghosts. It vanished overnight. Then, on a Tuesday that smelled of impending Thanksgiving, her classroom door opened during recess. Kowalski stood there in a new jacket, still army green, but clean, the patches bright. His beard was trimmed, his eyes less haunted. Shadow wore a red bandana that read "Service Dog." "Mr. Kowalski," Jamal yelled, and suddenly she was surrounded by third graders, all questions and sticky hands. Kowalski knelt so they could pet Shadow, who suffered the attention with stoic dignity. When the bell rang, he lingered. "Got a job," he said quietly. "Night security at the VA clinic. Pays enough for a room. Shadow's official now. Therapy dog training starts next week." Sarah's eyes stung. I'm so glad." He shrugged, embarrassed. "Your couch bought me time to fill out the paperwork. Turns out bureaucracy hates wet dog smell." She laughed, a sound that startled them both. "Thank you, Sarah," he said, "for seeing a man, not a ghost." That afternoon, he read to her class from a worn copy of Where the Red Fern Grows. His voice cracked in the sad parts, but the kids leaned in anyway. When the final bell rang, Mia tugged his sleeve. "Mr. K, will you come back?" He looked at Sarah. She nodded. "Reckon I might," he said. Winter deepened. Kowalski became a fixture. Fridays at 1 p.m., story time with Shadow. He brought veterans from the clinic sometimes, men and women with scars inside and out. The kids learned to ask gentle questions, to listen without flinching. Sarah watched Kowalski's hands steady, his shoulders square. She watched Shadow fill out, his coat glossy, his eyes bright with purpose. One Friday in March, the classroom buzzed with pre-spring break energy. Kowalski finished Charlotte's Web, closed the book, and cleared his throat. "Got an announcement," he said. The kids hushed. "Miss Thompson's been nominated for Teacher of the Year. District-wide." Sarah's mouth fell open. She hadn't known. Jamal started clapping first. Soon the room erupted. Kowalski's eyes shone suspiciously. Later, in the quiet after buses pulled away, he handed her an envelope. Inside was a single sheet of construction paper, crayon drawing of a dog wearing a superhero cape. Beneath, in Kowalski's careful block letters, some pig, some teacher, some friend. Sarah hugged him, awkward, fierce. He patted her back like she was made of glass. Outside, cherry blossoms were starting to bud, pink against the gray sky. Shadow chased one that fluttered down, caught it gently in his teeth. Sarah watched them and thought of cracked eggs, of growls in the dark, of the way a single act of courage could ripple outward like rings in still water. She thought of the note she'd left in the paper bag, the one Kowalski had never mentioned, "You are not forgotten." Turned out, neither was she. Years later, When Sarah accepted her Teacher of the Year award on a stage bright with camera flashes, she looked out at the audience and saw him in the back row, Kowalski, straight-backed in a suit that almost fit, Shadow at his feet wearing a tiny mortarboard. She told the story that night, not of the alley, but of the morning after, of pancakes and chamomile and the moment a stranger became family. She ended with the words Kowalski had whispered to Shadow the night they stayed, "We're guests. Mind your manners." Then she smiled at the crowd, at the cameras, at the world watching. "Some guests," she said, "change the house forever." And somewhere in the balcony, a shepherd dog thumped his tail once, slow and hopeful, against the floor.